Hey Nick,
How are you doing?
good. How are you, man?
Oh, not too bad.
Thanks again for coming on.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Thank you for bringing me on. I'm excited to be here.
you know, for everybody that's listening, we tried to do this last week and we had some minor issues. Looks like our one of our computers got coronavirus or something.
Yeah, we had a lot of technical issues, but
Yes,
we're back. We're here again.
yes, we're here to do it again.
Yes,
Give
awesome.
me a second because I feel like it's a little bit too loud. And I from the last time that when we tried to do it, I really like your stand. So I went out of my way and try to get myself one too.
Oh, really? That's
So
awesome.
yeah, so this is my first time using it, but do I sound very raspy or not?
No, not too bad. I think you sound
No?
pretty
Oh,
good.
okay.
But no.
And with I really like doing like from like statewide podcasts, but the timing always messes me up every time. Because like
Yeah.
for you, you're actually my first guest that's on the East Coast.
Oh,
Or
really?
yeah, all the people that have come on my podcast have been like from California. So
Okay.
I've kind of already gotten used to the 2 hour difference. But for you, it's only 1 hour difference. So I haven't really I haven't really gotten used to it, you know.
I
But so
use for all of
yeah.
my scheduling, I use Calendly, and they take care of it for you. So like I'll send
Mm,
it to the guest, and then they pick the time that they want, and then Calendly will put it in my calendar under my time zone. So
mhm.
then I know that it's always right because I'm the same way. I get so confused and like I'll be talking to people and be like, okay, does this time work for you? And they'll be like, yeah, sounds good. Not
Mhm.
thinking like you're 3 hours behind and I'm 3 hours ahead, and we're both thinking about two different times. So
Right. Yeah, when as we were chatting, I came across, well, when you sent me the link to your calendar, yeah, I was looking it up and it looked pretty cool. So I'm definitely gonna be checking it out. And just like how we met through this website, I'm surprised it doesn't have an app, but this website is called Wildcast, and I forgot how I came across it, but I mean, with Wildcast, it has definitely helped me out. I mean, now that's how I met you, and now I'm already talking to somebody else that can potentially be another guest. How did you come across Wildcast?
I honestly think I had Madison on my podcast
Mm-hmm.
like a few weeks back, and I was talking to her about that, and I think it was from like an Instagram ad or something.
Oh,
It popped up on my feed, and I was like, huh, I always need more guests for my podcast, so let's go check
right.
this thing out and see what's going on. And I honestly love it. It's They're obviously still in the beginning stages. They just launched in September. I don't know if you know
Oh,
that. Like they're
right.
still very young, and I mean, I'll email her. I'll talk to her about certain things that I find, and they're usually like quick to jump on it, and they're like, "Hey, like go check it out again. Like that's not there anymore, or we fixed this. Like go
Mm,
check this out." So they're constantly in development. They're still figuring it out, but I mean, so far the platform has been awesome. I've met a lot of awesome people like you and several others that have come on my podcast and that I've gone on their podcast. So it's been an awesome experience so far. It's a little bit more, I don't know, community, like actually connecting and engaging with people versus like
right.
cold pitching, like, hey, I have this podcast, want to come on?
Right. And one thing that's even helpful for both the guest and the podcaster is that as soon as you create an account, which I found super interesting, is that once you're setting up an account, you're able to put yourself whether you want to be a guest or whether you want to be a podcaster and like that. You can get guests looking for a podcaster and vice versa.
Hmm.
You could get podcaster looking for a guest, and you have a variety. So it's very cool. um all these things that are opening up to that's going to help podcasters, and guests and just having so much um, legitimate information out there coming from actual people that are in the force.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see a lot more platforms pop up now because, I mean, just in the last year, I think podcast has really exploded as in terms of like a platform, and more people are getting onto it. I think they just broke, it was either a million or 2 million podcasts worldwide just this last year, which is big, but at the same time, it's still very small when you compare it to YouTube and blogging, where I think YouTube has 50 million active channels and podcasting just
Dang.
broke a million. So it's still a super young platform, which has me excited about getting on it and trying to be one of like the quote unquote first people, even though everyone's been doing it for years now. But like it's still young and being able to get in early is really exciting and fun.
Right. I think I feel like everything that has happened in, like, for instance, like COVID, podcast, and just technology, it seems like, I don't know if um I feel like it's all kind of coming together in a way, because now, because of COVID, now we've kind of there's less contact within each other, you
Hmm.
know and also one thing that has helped with that is podcast. And I mean, even on your phone, like, so even when the new phones, you don't even have to type in your code. All you do is just do the face recognition, and you're in. And there's just everything. Even when you go to companies, as soon as you walk in, they don't go out there and check your temperature. And sometimes they'll just have stands, and you just go and they check your temperature, and you're it. So it's crazy how many things are becoming so contactless. And it's just, to me, it's kind of crazy just to even think or imagine where it's going to lead up to.
Well, yeah, I completely agree. I think what's so cool about podcasting and what kind of makes it unique and why I think it did really kind of flourish during the pandemic is I think everything getting shut down really exposed how everyone needs to be connected. Everyone's out there searching for connection, and when we're all locked in that house, we can't have that connection. And podcasting is a much more personal, it's still not you me talking face to face. I mean, we are, but we're not.
Hmm.
But you still kind of get that, I don't know, you hear the person on the other end, you're able to build a
Right.
connection with the voice on the other end versus something like a blog where you just see the written text. There's no emotion behind it. You can't get a feel for what that person is
Hmm.
like. So I think there's that level of connectedness and that connection there that really helps podcasts. I mean, you see it with Clubhouse and Twitter Spaces now, these audio only platforms, which I actually really love. I've spent quite a bit of time on Clubhouse, and being able to actually engage and have a one-on-one conversation with someone is way different than like hitting someone up in the comments and being like, "Hey man, I really like this post." Like there's no feeling or emotion behind that. You can't have a very productive discussion inside the
Right.
comments on like a Facebook post. And being able to get
Right.
feedback back and forth and hear people talking and engage with them that way, it's such a cool way. And I think that's when everything's getting shut down, I think that's why that's really succeeding now, is because everyone wants that connection.
Right. And to me, that it's very fascinating how, how we where we are now, and years ago of how it was. Because I mean, I could only imagine that years ago, all you knew is your little town, and that's it. If you wanted to talk to somebody, you would probably have to either like walk, or get in your carriage, or get in your horse, and go a mile or two just to get interaction, or get a hold of somebody. And now it's, you could talk. I mean, we're talking with each other from different states, and
Hmm.
we could pretty much talk to anybody out there in the world. There's no limit anymore.
Oh yeah, I mean, I love it for that aspect because I'm not the type to go out of my way to leave. I mean, my wife and I, we like to travel, we like to get out, we like to do stuff,
Mm.
but when I'm out and about, I'm not usually looking to build relationships with random people that I meet. So social medias and like podcasting and YouTube and all that's really cool because you can find people based on their interests, what they're sharing, doing all that, and you're kind of able to vet people before you meet them versus
Right.
walking up to strangers and saying, "Hey, what do you like to do? Hey, what do you like to do?" Like
Right.
it kind of they do the filtering for you in that aspect. But yeah, it's awesome that you are able to really connect. I've connected with people all over the world now since starting the podcast, over in the UK and Switzerland and Australia, and just it's been so cool being able to kind of have that ability to do that.
Right. Right. So you're in West Virginia, and how has West Virginia acted with the whole COVID and everything going on?
Um, they were actually really late to like fully shut everything down.
Oh, really?
I think they were one of the last states, but at the same time, I think they were when all the tests started rolling out, they were one of the last ones to have a confirmed COVID test, which is kind of interesting.
Hmm.
Um, but now, I mean, almost everything is open. Obviously, you got the masks that you got to wear still.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, majority of restaurants are open. Stores, everything seems to be open and functioning. It's just you got to wear a mask, and that's. I think there's some businesses that might be still shut down right now, but for the most part, we're kind of living a little bit more normal.
Right. And so you have a pretty, I would say a pretty interesting, and what I've noticed from a lot of some of my subscribers, they really like people that are kind of like project managers in that position. And you're a project manager, right?
Yeah, yep.
Can
I'm a project manager for a construction company. Yep.
oh, okay. And how has that affected you during the whole COVID thing?
Right now, a lot of construction has continued on throughout the pandemic. So it was, I think, I can't remember how exactly they worded it. It was like one of those essential jobs that had to keep moving forward.
Right.
So, I mean, a lot of stuff changed in the workplace. Every morning we have to do a temperature check. So
Mm.
basically, as soon as we get there, you fill out like the symptom sheet. Like, do you have any of these symptoms? Yes, no. And then do a temperature check. And then obviously masks like everywhere else. Otherwise, I mean, there's been some changes, but not anything huge. Like we didn't, I think maybe we were shut down for like a week while they were still trying
Okay.
to figure out what was going to happen, like how we were going to go about handling the situation. And then once we kind of got a grasp and put some rules and regulations in place with it, then everything started going back to work and kind of business as usual after that.
Mm. So on your day to day as a project manager in the construction company, how does that go about?
So a lot of what I do is progress tracking, so tracking the progress of the jobs that we're on, tracking the budgets, the schedules, organizing the bids. So each month we kind of have to review the project, see where we're at in terms of progress, and what we think is going to take to finish the job. So it's a lot of tracking like that. It's a lot of
Mm.
time in Excel sheets, a lot of time just really plugging numbers away. But um, yeah, it's I don't know, keeps me busy for sure.
Right. And is there different platforms that you go? Is there project managers for commercial, for houses, or how does that work?
Really, it's all kind of based off of it's called a PMP.
Mm.
Um, I don't even know. It's kind of like a certificate or like a
Right.
standard practice. It's like it stands for Project Management Professional,
Right.
and everything is kind of based around those principles. That's something that I'm actually working towards right now is getting that PMP
Mm.
certification. Um, but yeah, it's usually pretty similar. Like the concepts and the principles are all the same. It's just a matter of what you're actually tracking now. Are you tracking commercial? Are you tracking infrastructure? It just the functions of how you track it are just different, but really the principles, how you schedule, how you project out, how you calculate your costs and do all that's all relatively similar from industry to industry.
Right. So the have you taken the PMP before? The PMP test before?
I have not. I was taking some online courses. They were like UCLA online courses as sort of like a prep. And then I'm still gonna go take. There's more of a that was like an introduction to project management type of thing,
Mm.
and then there is like an actual PMP prep course that I'm gonna go through that'll kind of get me more prepared for that test. I know several people who have taken it, and they said it's a beast of an exam, but they passed, so I'm leaning on them a little bit to kind of show me where to go with it as I'm getting ready for the test. But
Right. So the what was I gonna say? Has thing I was right there. Um. Oh, did you go? Is project management something that you wanted to go into, or was it construction, or what came first?
honestly, it was something that all kind of fell together at the same time. I
Okay.
actually went to school. I graduated with a business administration degree, and I was really just putting the feelers out, sending resumes out to different places. I played baseball in college, and my coach there in college, he worked for this company, and he reached out and said, "Hey, like they're looking for project managers. If you're interested in
Mm.
it, let me know. We can send in a resume." And said, "Okay, sure. Here you go. Send it in." Didn't hear back from him for months. I had gotten a different job. I was actually living in Minneapolis at the time
Oh wow.
and working in the city there, just at like cubicle. It was not great. And then they ended up calling me and said, "Hey, can you come in for an interview?" Like, all right, cool. I'm like, all right, well, in a couple of weeks, we need you to go out to North Dakota. It's like,
Oh,
holy cow. All right.
wow.
So it all kind of really happened fast. And it was kind of like a sink or swim situation where you just kind of got thrown out there and was like, all right, go figure it out. But
Right.
I had some good people that kind of guided me along the way, some kind of like mentors in
Mm-hmm.
the field that helped me get my feet underneath me. And then being a project based thing, we kind of bounce around. My wife and I moved to wherever the projects
Oh
go
wow.
next. So we've kind of lived all over the place in the US now.
That's pretty cool. And that's something. How often do they make you? How often do they give you the opportunity to travel?
So usually it's based on the project itself. A lot of the projects that we do are typically about 6 months to a year long,
Oh wow.
and that's been pretty consistent up until I moved out here to West Virginia. Um, Most of the projects we end up getting there early spring and then leaving like late fall, end of December timeframe. And this project has faced a lot of issues out here. And we've been going since 2018, beginning of 2018. I've been out on this one.
Oh wow.
So
Do you have any kids?
no, no kids right now.
Oh okay.
My wife and I got married actually after we moved out here. A few months after we moved out here, we went back home because we're actually from Minnesota and Wisconsin. So we went back home, got married, and then came back out here again and been just kicking it out in West Virginia.
Nice. I was gonna say that would be a big complicating, right? Trying to travel through your work and then have kids and just have them go with you wherever they go.
Yeah, that's something we had talked about is probably not going to be something we do while I'm still working in this job specifically because yeah, we don't wouldn't want to have to drag the kids from location to location and
Right.
really, I mean, where I want to go with my career and everything that I'm doing is not really in this position. I've definitely learned a lot and it's helping me kind of develop my own brand and business, and that's
Hmm.
really where my focus has been trying to like build that up to where one day I can eventually leave construction, leave project management, and focus on my stuff full time.
Hmm. So it's one of the is traveling one of the things that you love about your job?
It's it's really interesting. Like we really love to travel.
Hmm.
It seems like a lot of the places the projects end up happening are not like the most fun places.
Oh.
Like the first year we were in North Dakota, and
Uh-huh.
then I mean I probably never would have spent a lot of time in North Dakota myself. No
Right.
offense to anybody in North Dakota. It's just there's a lot of dirt and a lot of wind. Like
Right.
it's not my place.
Right.
And then West Virginia again. That one was actually interesting because I never had any desire to go to West Virginia, and once I got out here, I realized like it's a really beautiful state.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's I don't know. It's been a long time here. We're like ready to kind of move back towards the Midwest a little bit and kind of
Mm-hmm.
be closer to home in a way, closer to family.
Right. Right. And how long have you been in? How long have you been a project manager for for the construction industry?
It would have been the first project I went on was 2016,
Oh,
so not
okay.
too terribly long, but yeah.
Hmm. Has there been any big changes that you've seen, and as far as construction between when you started and now?
I think more like the from permitting a permitting standpoint, the regulations and restrictions there have gotten stricter.
Mm-hmm.
So we're actually a contractor that's hired by like the project itself.
Oh,
We
okay.
actually do the physical construction,
Mm-hmm.
and since over like the last couple of years, it's been increasingly difficult for those companies to get the permits that we need to actually do the construction. So
Mm-hmm.
that's been what's kind of plagued us out here on this job specifically is the permitting, how tighter they're trying to make everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's been really the biggest change I've seen just over the few years.
Right. So from going to school, everything that you learned and all the classes that you took, what would you say were some interesting things that really helped you as you went into the actual field that helped you out?
That's a good question. um, I would say probably the management classes
Mm-hmm.
in particular. I actually took some pretty extensive Excel classes in college, and I didn't when I was taking them at the time. I didn't think anything. I was like, when am I going to use Excel? Like, why would I use this? Like, all I use it for is like making lists. And
Right.
the class that I took, we actually got like really in depth with some crazy formulas. And actually thinking about it now, they're not really that crazy. But
Mm-hmm.
at the time, it was like, holy cow, this is so much. And that's something we use spreadsheets a lot. And
Oh, okay.
looking back at it, I was like, holy cow, like I actually took classes on this very stuff. And it was like all starting to come back to me. And since we do a lot of our tracking and progress reporting through Excel, it really helped me kind of keep up and stay ahead, whereas other people that weren't quite as Excel savvy were kind of falling behind.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then really just I think the sense of community and being able to socialize and do all that in college is what's probably been the biggest positive impact on my career, where I'm at, and where I'm planning to go. So I think without that social aspect of it, I probably would have been somewhat of a hermit sitting in my apartment, staying away from everybody. Like I was such an introvert, and I still am, but I would just, I don't know, I didn't really have any desire to go out of my way.
Right. It's kind of funny that because I would consider myself an introvert too, and then now you say you're an introvert, and I've also interviewed a couple of people that are introverts, but then these are the people that that we're out here and we're having these type of conversations.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's weird to me.
So I actually, someone came on my podcast and we were talking about introvert.
Okay.
She coaches introverted entrepreneurs, and she threw out a term that I had never heard before, but it's called ambivert.
Say it again.
Ambivert. I,
Ambivert.
yeah, I don't know how to spell it, and I don't know if I'm saying it totally right, but basically, it's like you're kind of like caught in the middle. Like you're an
Mm,
introvert in the fact that you're not going to go out of your way, but then when the time comes where you have to kind of be more extroverted, you can. And
right.
I think I would fall like lean more between like introvert and ambivert, where like coming on a podcast, I mean, it took a while to get me to this point where I'm more comfortable speaking on a microphone and just talking freely like this.
Right.
But it seems like now I'm more comfortable doing that, and we can sit here and have a conversation, and I can be a little bit
Right.
more outgoing and like a little bit more energetic with everything I'm doing and not
Right.
totally just like completely locked down. So
Right.
that was really interesting to me. I think that's probably more where I would fall into now looking at it.
Right. Yeah, that's another reason why, I enjoy doing like a podcast with another, just like a one-on-one. I'm That's where I'm not, an extrovert to where I don't like to be the center of attention,
Hmm.
and I don't I don't like to be in a group and kind of
Yep.
talk. I don't know, I get very shy.
Yeah.
But like stuff like this is something that just one-on-one conversation. This is something that I can actually do without any problem, you know?
Yeah, and that's what makes like growing a business and growing a podcast and all this so difficult because I mean, you have to be able to show up on social media. You have to be able to put
Mm.
yourself out there in that position. And really, if you're not going to kind of be your own cheerleader and kind of like actively throw your stuff out there, it's very difficult for people to find you.
Right.
And it's easy to get drowned out by the people that are like, here it is, here it is, here it is. Like, take all of the content and this is me and all of me. Like, it's very difficult to look at it, like, take a step back and say, okay, if I really want to see this succeed, I'm going to have to just put it out there.
Right.
And that's really what I ended up doing with the podcast because I put it off for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I tried getting on video and it was killing me because I could not do it. It was so frustrating.
Uh-huh.
And finally I was like, you know what? Like I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna put it out. If nobody listens, nobody listens. If people think it's terrible, like whatever, but at least I can say that I tried and I did it.
Right.
And since doing that, like it's opened up so many doors and opportunities for me that I only wish I would have gotten over that like tipping point to say screw it and just do it sooner because it's been a blast since I've started.
Right. It's like one of those crazy quotes where they say that you kind of have to do things that are uncomfortable to you because only then you'll see the other side. And it's, I know it sounds like silly or whatever, but sometimes when it's done, it all makes sense.
Yeah,
And 'cause
it's
that I mean that's how um and you know like we talked before, I even tried to do videos by myself and I was just not digging it. I was like,
mm-hmm,
you know what? I want to do something, but this is not what I want to do. So I
mm-hmm,
think is it's also just you kind of have to do a lot of trial and errors and see what works best for you. And I think even if you enjoy a little bit of something, you know, all it is putting in the work. You know, because at the beginning, even till now, I wouldn't say I'm a good podcast host, but the point is to get whatever you want to do going and just keep going at it, you
right.
know.
Yeah, I mean, this is something I brought some guests on my show to talk about that specifically, like more for video, because that was
Mhm.
something that I was trying to overcome. And I've put out videos. I got some videos up on YouTube now, so that's really cool. But getting outside of that comfort zone is definitely, if you want to progress and see growth, that's what you have to do. And like
Right.
what you're doing with the podcast, like I think that's awesome because you are stepping outside of your comfort zone to do it. It's not
Thanks.
something you were just born with and you're like, all right, give me the mic, let's do this thing.
Right.
But something that I like to bring up, and I think I don't know when this like realization hit me, but when we're younger and we're learning new things, we
Hmm.
never think about it. We don't think about what people are thinking about. We don't think
Mm.
about how it's going to affect other people. We don't have those thoughts. We just go out and do it. If someone says, "Oh, you want to learn how to throw a football?" Sure, boom, throw it. Like you don't really think about, is that throw going to look dumb? Are people
Right.
going to think that I look like I'm unathletic? And it's that repetition, that not caring what other people think and just going ahead and doing it, that eventually builds those skills. And I
Right.
think as we get older, we just become more self-aware and conscious of like other people around us, and we're like, oh shoot, like if I do this, that means other people are going to see me doing it. And what if I do it bad? Like then they're going to think, oh, that person doesn't know what he's talking about, or she's not good at that. And I think we just have to like really break that mindset and that barrier that's holding us back and just say, you know what? I'm going to start out. It's going to suck probably at the beginning, and we just have to keep pushing forward, and eventually it's going to get better.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
you hear people all the time talk about video, and they're like, "Yeah, my first 100 videos just sucked," and then by 101, it was like it all kind of clicked and started coming
Right.
together. Well, if you
Yeah.
didn't do 1 to 100 first, you're never going to get to 101 that's going to finally click.
Right.
So
Right.
being able to put yourself out there and say, okay, this is uncomfortable and it's probably going to suck, but I really want to do this, and I think that this is the direction I need to go.
Right.
Be willing to deal with that.
Yeah, it almost like we have to go back to, our thinking ways as a kid, because as a kid we were fearless. We
Yeah.
weren't thinking out the consequences. We just did whatever we wanted, and we did whatever we could to have fun. And you know eventually you learn through it, because now I have a kid, and you know when I see her doing crazy stuff, I'm like, it gives me anxiety. But then it's like, that's how I was as a kid. I didn't give a shit wh-
Right.
whether I broke a leg or an arm or anything. And I remember one time I saw like two kids were fighting, and then one of them rats to the mom right in front of the other one, like, oh, he's hitting me. And the other kid didn't, they both didn't care,
Yeah.
right? And right after, they just started playing again. And it's like, when do adults do that? When somebody talks smack on somebody, you don't go tell them up front. There's some that go behind their back. And, that's what I mean. Like, sometimes we have to act like kids again and kind
Right.
of be fearless. And at the end of the day, it goes back to normal.
Yeah.
you
No,
know
exactly. I honestly think social media has definitely had a major impact on that mentality. Obviously, just as we get older, we kind of become more conscious and more self aware. And I mean, you don't want to be completely reckless and like in danger or hurt someone right next to you. So you kind of have that more thinking of other people in
right.
mind. But with social media specifically, and I'm thinking like Instagram, like hell, people post the highlight reels. Social media is all that's all it is a highlight reel. And it gives the perception of perfection.
Hmm.
And
Right.
if you're new in like the content creation space and you're seeing that, you're like, well, hell, I can't be that. I'm not perfect.
Hmm.
Like, why would I be posting? I'm competing against all these people who are perfect.
Right.
But they're only sharing the highlights. They're not sharing like the first 100 takes they did to get that perfect photo. They're only sharing the best
Right.
photo out of the bunch. So it really warps people's mindset, I think, being able to see the highlight reels on social media and not see all of the bad that led up to that highlight.
Right. Right. When the first time if you're new, and you're especially new to social media, and you want to start something, and you dig into Instagram or whatever it may be, right away it already looks threatening and it looks scary,
Yeah,
because there's so much people already doing what you're doing, and there's so much competition, and there's so much that you have to, yeah, so there's so much that you have to compete. So it kind of, you have to like break out of that barrier and be like, you know what, even though I have so much competition, I'm still going to do it because I want to. Because you can easily just back off and be like, you know what, fuck that, that's too much. you know
yeah.
that's that's the way that I see it. So back to project management. um I'm kind of curious to know, like, what are some things that you have to learn as a project manager in the construction industry. Like, do you have to learn like how the beams work, the material, the geometry, or stuff like that?
So I think I think our industry is a little bit different than some in the project management realm, because we have a project manager, we have our foremans that kind of man the individual crews, and then we have a superintendent that is kind of like over the whole project.
Mm-hmm.
And that superintendent, he's he kind of handles a lot of that side of it.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and like I'll weigh in on my opinions, but he's the expert in the field.
Mm,
Like he's the ultimate decision maker in that aspect. I have noticed through like the project management courses and stuff like that, a lot of times that project manager is kind of the one that has that say. Like these are the resources we're going to use. This is how we're going to do it. So our superintendent kind of acts as like a another project manager in a way.
right.
Um, so I mean, really, I mean, I can tell you honestly that I don't know all of the materials and the ins and outs and the equipment and when we necessarily need to use this versus that.
Mm-hmm.
But with a lot of the projects and everything, there are a lot of like specs and documentation and stuff like that to be referred back to. So I
Mm-hmm.
definitely lean on all of those, knowing the contract, knowing the specifications and how the project needs to be constructed is extremely important. So really, it's more about the each project is different, I guess, is kind of what I'm getting at. So being able
Mm-hmm.
to, if you don't know the answer, being able to go and find it is extremely key.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's a lot of what it comes down to there.
Mm, okay. And I mean, you you seem like you have a pretty I would say that you have a pretty cool career because you're a project manager, and not only that, but you have the opportunity to, at least have the opportunity to travel from place to place. And some places may not be, say as vacation wise, but it's definitely out of your normal place,
Mhm.
and from being there and being as a project manager, what kind of made you go ahead and start your own podcast?
So really, well, I guess first for one, yeah, being able to travel has been super cool because like it's not like a typical, I guess, person. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
times you'd graduate college or you go get a career job, and then wherever you find that career job is kind of where you kind of plant your roots, and that's where we're going to live from now on. So my wife and I have been talking about this a lot because we really don't know where we want to live because we're not tied down to a specific job. We kind of
Right.
have the freedom to go wherever we want. So that's really cool. Um, but why I actually wanted to start building my own business, it just there's something about the lack of control and the lack of freedom that comes with having like a 9 to 5 job that I
Mm-hmm.
just really don't, I guess, fit well with. I don't mesh well with that. I like to be able to do what I want when I want. I don't have to request time off. I don't have to say I necessarily have to come in and stay from 6 until 5 o'clock in the afternoon or 6 o'clock in the afternoon. And like being able to have the freedom to kind of, hey, we want to have an extended weekend this weekend or we want to get away for a week, like being able to just go and do that and
Mm-hmm.
not have the monetary restriction that would go along with that. And I think that's really where my drive to do something and build something of my own kind of came from, is being able to kind of take control of that aspect of my life and have that freedom to, if we want to take a vacation, we're going to go take a vacation. Like I
Right.
set that schedule.
Right. And where did I mean, have you always had kind of the entrepreneur mindset, or where did that come from?
No, and actually, I honestly, I thought that what I was doing, this path that I was on with the project management and everything, I thought like
Mm.
that was going to be it. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm gonna end up doing this until I retire, and then who knows what next. And I knew it didn't feel right. Like it didn't. Like I would think about it and be like, man, that's a long time to just ride this out. Or even if I were to change jobs, like go sit in a cubicle for the next 20, 30 years, whatever it
Right.
is. And it wasn't until I found a book.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing some digging at Barnes and Noble, and I was like in the business section because I was like, I graduated college, like I have a job, I have to take business seriously because I'm a
Right.
businessman. And I found a book, and it was called The Millionaire Fast Lane by MJ DeMarco, and it seems like a total like get rich quick schemy type of a book,
Right.
and it was definitely not.
Mm-hmm.
Like it completely blew my mind because inside that book, he's like, why would you get a career, work your ass off at that career until you turn 65, hopefully have saved up enough money to retire on, and
Mm-hmm.
hopefully be healthy enough to enjoy it once you're finally retired? Who's to say you're not going to be in a wheelchair at 65 and your passion for traveling, well, that's out the window because now you can't get around? Or you plan to save and you finally get to retirement and find out, well, hell, I don't have enough money to retire yet. I have to still
Right.
work another 5, 10 years or however long that is. He's like, you should be enjoying now while you're healthy and able
Mm-hmm.
instead of waiting for the unknown to happen.
Right.
And that like really stuck with me. And he gets in all to like the passive income and that whole side of things to kind of free up your time and still get income coming in. So that, I mean, that whole concept in that book really just kind of caught my attention. I was like, yeah, that's what I need to
Mm-hmm.
do. And before that, I thought, okay, well, entrepreneurs, those are your like Jeff Bezos, your Elon Musk, your Bill Gates, like your billionaires.
Mm-hmm.
Not I wasn't thinking or seeing the successful entrepreneurs that are making six figures, and you don't hear about them because they're not making billions of dollars, but they're making six figures. They're living the life they want to live. They have the freedom to come and go as they please. They're not worried about the money. It's they're doing something they love and they're making decent money doing it. And after doing the digging and seeing all that, I was like, that's what I want. That's what I need to work towards. So
Mm-hmm.
that was kind of the turning point where I'm like, oh, entrepreneurship, that's a thing. That's a real thing
Right.
that anybody can achieve if they want it.
What were some of the trials and errors that you made along the way that eventually led you to podcasting?
So I started so actually before I even started the 9 5 to Freedom brand, like that's kind of my umbrella brand that the
Mm-hmm.
podcast kind of fits into as well. Before I did that, I started a business with my dad and my brother,
Mm-hmm.
and it's called Experiment, and it's
Okay.
basically it's the kind of a similar concept to like Airbnb, but for
Oh, okay.
like outdoor gear.
Mm-hmm.
So like kayak rentals, bike rentals, like
Mm.
that type of stuff.
Okay.
And as we're working on building that, I thought like, okay, if I'm gonna be doing this and I'm working on this with my dad and my brother, like I would like to also build some kind of personal brand as well. Like I want some kind of personal brand to go along with it.
Mm.
And why not, as I'm building it, kind of show people what I'm doing to build a business? Because surely I'm not the only one that wants to build something of their own.
Right.
So
Right.
I really started with blogging and that whole content creation side. It was basically like blogging and social media. And I wasn't consistent at all. So that was my first big mistake is
Mm-hmm.
that I would post sporadically. I wouldn't post that often. When I did post, I'd post it, promote it for like a week, and then wouldn't touch it again.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like constantly being inconsistent like that. I ended up getting like busy with the project management stuff and couldn't focus on it. So there was probably like a good 6, 7 months where I didn't post a single blog post.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally I came back to it. I was like, okay, no, I got to get back on this. Got to take it seriously. And then I started focusing on SEO. And for anyone
Mm.
listening, that it's search engine optimization. It's basically like how your website shows up on Google.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were to search podcasting, who are the first people that pop up when you type in podcasting?
Right.
That was kind of the whole idea with the blog is that I'm going to figure out how to rank my pages higher to really get more traffic to my website and be able to bring in money.
Right.
But with that mindset, if you're not focusing on the people that you're writing to, it's completely worthless. Yeah, you're going
Right.
to get traffic coming to your website, but it's not going to be what anyone's looking for, and no one's going to stay on your website. No one's going to spend money on your website. Like it's just you're bringing people to send them away, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of in the transition of all that, and I don't know, blogging and writing is just kind of not something I totally enjoy. Like I do it because I know it's important, but it's not
Right.
something where I'm like every day I just want to go write another blog post. That's just not
Right.
me. So then I started
Right.
getting into video, and I was like, okay, video's where it's at. Everyone's talking about video's buzzing right now. Like that's what I need to do. I need to focus on video. And like I mentioned earlier, it was a train wreck.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I hit record, like I'd know the content, I know what I want to talk about. I'd hit record on it, and all of my thoughts would just
Disappear.
completely eliminate. They'd be gone from my head, and it was so frustrating. And after repeatedly failing at that, I went to TikTok, and I was like, okay, like I'm gonna get myself on camera. I'm gonna be in
Mhm.
front of the video. TikTok is exploding right now, so if I end
Right.
up growing a following as I'm doing it, like more power to me. But I like set it on a goal. I was gonna like I'm gonna post. I think it was 100 videos in 30 days on TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
Missed that entirely. But
Oh.
I got to like maybe like 50, and then that's when it all kind of died. But
Yeah.
through that process, it was probably like 2 or 3 weeks in, like I realized, okay, this isn't as scary as I thought it was. Like I was showing up like face in camera, like showing up talking to the camera every day, 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5 videos a day. And through that, I was like, okay, this isn't that bad. Like I could
Mm-hmm.
do this. And my wife was actually the one, I think she was listening to a podcast and they talked about starting a podcast
Right.
and said, you just have to do it. You have to stop thinking about it, stop getting inside your own head, stop waiting, just do it. And she told me that, and I was like, yeah, like I'm just going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I started looking up how to start a podcast. I started reaching out to people like, okay, if I started a podcast, would you want to be a guest on my show? Like,
Right.
especially like right at the beginning, like just people in my circle that I knew.
Right.
They're like, yeah, sure, let's do it. Let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
So started getting those interviews, started getting everything set up, and like within 45 days, like the podcast was like launched. I had like 4 or 5 episodes recorded, like ready to go, and then since then we've just been going every single week since. So it's from something that was just like a thought and an idea
Right.
evolved into like that's my main source of content creation right now is definitely the podcast.
Right. Right. Wow. And right now, how many episodes are you at right now?
Um, at the time of this recording, I have 35 published and 36 going out tomorrow.
Wow.
So
Very
since
nice.
July of last year, I think I missed 1 or 2 weeks, and that was like holiday stuff.
Right.
So other than that, it's been consistent, and pretty much all of them were interview all guests so far. That's kind of my
Mm-hmm.
bringing on entrepreneurs every week is kind of the premise of it. So it's been
Right.
a lot to keep up and like try to keep getting guests to come in and find new people to come on the show. But it's been a lot of fun. I've been able to connect with awesome people, and it's allowed me to start coming on podcasts and doing all that. So it's been just an amazing experience.
Right. As you get more and more episodes in, do you feel like it's getting easier for you, more complicated for you?
Yes. So it's been getting easier for me because I've kind of started systemizing a lot of the stuff. So when it comes to actually recording the podcast, I went through several different programs, several different ways of recording the podcast
Mm,
until I finally landed where I'm at now and really happy with
right.
where I'm at. And then it came down to the editing. Editing was taking me forever. Like the first couple episodes, I probably spent 6 to 8 hours editing the audio, not even video, just audio for the podcast episode.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned ways to speed that up, and now I've cut that down to edit an entire episode. My episodes are usually 45 minutes to an hour long. It'll take me about an hour and a half to edit the entire episode,
Nice.
and then it's published, ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
So in that aspect, it's definitely gotten easier.
Okay.
I built those systems in place, but then as I'm getting more time from doing that, now I'm focusing on other ways to try to grow the show.
Right.
So all of my episodes, because I record remotely, I've been getting video of everybody from the very beginning. That's just what I started doing. So I was like, I want to have that content so later I could post it if I want to. But I
Right.
knew it was going to be too much to take on. So now I'm starting to try incorporating that into the mix. So now I'll have audio and video that I can publish on YouTube and social media and
Mm.
doing that whole gambit. So that's made it complicated now.
Mm.
Trying to figure out how to systemize that process now so I'm not spending 8 hours editing a podcast episode for video.
Right. And as far as guests, do you think now you're getting more and more guests as you put in more episodes, or you think that your guests are dying down?
No, I mean, right now, this is the like, most interest I've had in terms
Mm.
of like guests coming on the show.
Oh, okay.
And it started out at the beginning where I'd record an episode like on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, and I'd be publishing it the next Wednesday.
Okay.
Like it was pretty tight. I think some of them I even like recorded it on a Monday or Tuesday and released it on Wednesday. Like I was running a really tight
Mm,
line with getting the episodes out. And now I've started building up a decent bank where I think I probably have 10 to 15 episodes either recorded or scheduled right now, like interviews
wow.
already done, kind of just in the bank. And I've been going through a list of podcast guests that I have right now, and I'm having to go back and start reaching out to these people. But I probably, with those people that I have interviews to get set up with, I probably have another 15 possibly interviews of people that would be interested in coming on.
Okay.
So if I can get that done, that'll get me pretty close to the fourth quarter of 2021. So that'd be really cool to kind of get those interviews like locked in and know that I have that much content to lean on and not really
Right.
have to worry about like, am I
Yes.
going to have an episode next week?
Right. Yep. Yep. And see, I like beginning as before I started the podcast, you don't really realize all the work that it really dives into as far as editing, and that's not even just simple editing, not even adding all the stuff that you think is going to make your podcast more attractive. there's
Mhm,
there's all the editing, the audio, every little detail, and even the guests, because before you think, okay, I'm start a podcast and I'm going to have all kinds of people in there, but then when you're actually doing like, all right, who do I go to next? There was a time where I had to almost not shoot an episode for like 2 weeks because I just couldn't get a guest. And, you know, just like how we were saying that you kind of have to go out of your comfort zone. I feel like if you want to succeed in whatever you're doing, you're going to have to constantly go through that. Because yeah, you broke out of your comfort zone to start a podcast, but now you got to do it again to find more and more and more guests, because as you grow, everything else is also growing, and you're going to have to just keep on breaking all the barriers. And
mhm,
thankfully now, as like you mentioned, as you put in more work, then it does become more easier. And I think it's always the like the first ones where you're trying to figure kind of stuff out. And even as far as the software, like I had no idea. I had to say like, okay, which software do I use? There was, at the beginning, I was just using my iPhone, and I turned out that that was probably not the best. There was actually there was a lot ton more programs that you can use that could be more effective and more efficient to videos like this.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, it's there's a lot to it once you start getting into it, for sure.
Right.
I mean, and you could, I've probably, with how I've kind of set everything up and where I'm going now, like I've tried to make it the simplest way possible to kind of cut out all of the extra issues that you can encounter. But I mean, there's always going to be something that is going to bug you. At least that's how I am. I don't know if that's how you are, where it's like
Yes.
something happens each week and you're like, gosh, that really makes me so mad. Like I need to find a solution to that. I need to fix that, or I need to figure out the right way to edit that, or like
Right.
I don't know. It seems like there's always ways to improve. There's always ways to get better. But yeah, I
Right.
mean, it's cool because through starting the podcast and doing the interviews, like I've kind of become really good at networking,
Hmm.
and that's really helped too with the podcast, like bringing the guests and finding new guests and stuff like that. Like you're bringing on a guest, they know people. Usually they're gonna know people. So if you get done interviewing someone and you're still looking for guests, be like, hey, like if there's anybody that you know that would be interested or would be a good fit for the show, like I'd love your thoughts on that. And I've gotten quite a few interviews just doing that.
Nice.
Some people will be like, oh yeah, here's a list of like 5 people. Here are their emails. Go reach out. And then it's a super easy. You've already built the trust up with that guest,
Right.
and you say, hey, I just did an episode with Nick. He threw me your name and said that you might be interested in coming on the podcast. Like, what do you think? And they're
Hmm.
like, oh, Nick was on the podcast. Like, cool, yeah, I'll do that. You've already kind of like you've kind of jumped that curve of like having to build that trust because someone they trust is already put their trust in you. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you're trusted by association at that point.
Right.
So being able, like, again, stepping out of your comfort zone, not being afraid to ask. If you don't ask, you're not going to get anything.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's a big, I guess, tip for everybody. Like, no matter what you're doing, don't be afraid to ask questions because you never know who knows who, or
Right.
the person you're asking could be the exact person that you need in your life to make that next step or that next jump. But if you're too nervous to ask and you just kind of sit in the corner, then yeah, it's that opportunity is going to pass and you won't even know it.
Right. Yeah. And it's, I mean, it's all, it's great. And I feel like it kind of sucks because this is something that we can even do in public. But now the way that things have gone, and sometimes from information being exploited too much, there's out there in society, there's less people uh connecting with each other.
Mhm.
So I feel like throughout time, kind of network within the community, within people, has kind of died down. And hopefully, conversations like this start it up again.
Mhm.
Because as I'm talking to, as I'm getting guests, I realize that when you talk to somebody, there's you're always going to find something that you're in common with in that person, no matter whether you don't have the same, whether or not you have the same political views, whether or not you have the same dislikes, the same likes. You're always going to find something in common that you both can actually have a conversation about and laugh about. And it kind of gives you, at least to me, it's given me even more of a confidence to talk to people and really know what they're all about, what they think about, how they feel about things, and what they like to do for fun. So you know I feel like just talking and having communication within one another can be super, super, super beneficial, not only for that one person, but also for everybody. And we're for years we've always been a species that works best as a community. I mean, the early ideas that happened, they started from one idea, and it got communicated from one person to another, to another, to another. And eventually you see that idea really grow, and you see the idea become really beneficial to the community. And that's kind of the only, I feel like that's something that we don't really take for granted, that we definitely should, because that's something that it's been passed on to us, and there's no reason why we shouldn't pass it on to our future generations you know
Yeah, I was actually. It's kind of funny you brought that up because I was just throwing together. I might have been on social media. I might have been on Instagram.
hmm
I put out a post in the description. I talked about it was a Mark Shields quote. There's always strength by numbers,
hmm
and it like fits perfectly into what you're saying right there because
oh
it. I mean, it's exactly right. If you're just one person,
Mm,
there's only so much you can do. But if you have others
right,
around, like in your community and within your space, like you can lift each other up. I think
right,
what often happens, especially from like a business standpoint, is it gets so competitive. Where it's like, no, I can't help you. You're my competition.
right,
And really, I mean, it's true and it's not. Like, there's enough space here for everybody. Like,
right,
even the most competitive niches, like, there's still room for people in those niches. You're not, it might be difficult to, like, come out with the next Nike or the next Adidas or something like that. But you could create a clothing brand and a shoe brand that does super successful that allows you to live the life that you want to live. Just because you can't be Nike doesn't mean you shouldn't pursue that like dream or that passion. And if people are able to like come together and kind of help build each other up, like a podcasting standpoint, like you and I are both podcasters. We're both competing for listeners' attention, but like I have no problem helping you grow
Right.
your podcast or doing what I can to help give you tips and vice versa. Like
Mm-hmm.
even though we're kind of competing for the same listenership, like I mean, there's still space in here for both of us. I
Right.
guarantee there's people who have never heard of me that listen to you, and people who have never heard of you that listen to me. And if
Right.
we can share those audiences and share those experiences, like we're both going to talk about stuff differently.
Right.
So some of your people might fit better with my audience, and some of my people might fit better with your audience. Like that's just how it is. But yeah, being afraid to kind of come together as a community, like fear of competition and all that, I think is kind of silly in my opinion.
Right. Right. I think it should be more of a, you know, friendly competition, if anything,
Yeah.
where, you can both, hey, you know what, we're both selling the same product, but I'm having trouble with this. I think it's all about how you communicate, because if you're doing something that the other person is already doing, and you're trying to just replicate the same thing without even communicating with each other, then that's when it turns into
Mhm.
this coalition between each other, and this competition thing where you say, you know what, I really like the idea that you came up, is it cool if I go ahead and use it for what I'm working on, and from there, that's one way of kind of going about it. But when you got kind of no communication, that's where kind of it all trickles down, and that's when it gets all complicated.
All right.
you
Yeah,
know
that's when the fighting starts.
yeah. Exactly. So you mentioned that the book that you read and kind of enlightened you of entrepreneurship, do you do a lot of reading?
Um, Not so much reading.
Mm-hmm.
I listen to a lot of books.
Oh, okay.
Um, I actually driving to the job site. I have like an hour commute to and from work every day,
Mm-hmm.
so it's given me a lot of opportunities to consume a lot of podcasts and consume a lot of audiobooks. And that's something that was kind of a goal of mine was to start reading more because I wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I have a hard time just sitting down doing nothing. I'm kind of like always
Right.
in go mode.
Nice.
If I'm sitting down doing nothing, I'm sitting down and like watching TV. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm reading is like work for me. Like
Right.
I feel like if I have to read, I'm having to like exert so much more energy. So being able to like on the commute, like turn on the audiobook and just listen to it. Um, Plus I'm more of an auditory and like visual learner.
Oh,
So
okay.
I'll read 3 pages in a book and be like, oh shoot, like what did I just read? My mind's like all over the place. So I've
Right.
actually consumed since starting to do that. I've consumed quite a few books in the last couple of years that like I'm really proud of. I actually just picked up another book this morning and started listening to that one. But lately, I've fallen off the consuming content for a while because I was just taking in too much information, like getting too many ideas, and it was just
Mm,
locking me up. So I had to take a break from that for a little bit, and then now I got back on it, started listening to podcasts again and picking up books, and
right. Last year, I kind of went a bit crazy on reading books, but I feel like, well, with me, I read a lot of books, but one of the things was noticing was that even though I'm reading a lot of books, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm capturing every little word that it says.
mm,
So kind of this year, what I'm trying to do is, if a book is interesting enough, I go ahead and read it 2 or even 3
mhm,
times, to where it really grabs onto me. And I feel like that has really helped, especially with the podcast, because now it gives me opportunity to have another conversation into whatever I'm reading about.
mhm.
You know.
And I mean, depending on when you read it the first time, like if you read it a couple months ago, you're going to be at a different place in your life right now than you were a few
Right.
months ago. So now that book might mean something completely different to you at this point in your life.
Right.
You might pick up different things or draw different connections that you didn't make that first time. So I think that's an awesome thought there. I There's a couple books that I've come back to like reread or re-listened to, but for the most part, I've just kind of consumed and went on my way. But
Mm-hmm.
I do think it's extremely important. Like a lot of the books that I read are like personal development.
Okay.
I forced myself to read like a couple fiction books just to like kind of break up the idea that I have to like constantly be like engaged in learning.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I've noticed like even listening to podcasts, like that's one of my main sources of education
Mm-hmm.
is through
Right.
podcasts. And if I'm
Right.
constantly taking in all of this information,
Mm-hmm.
constantly coming up with ideas, and then I constantly sidetrack myself because I'm like, oh, I have to do that. And then I'll listen to a new podcast or read a new book and be like, oh no, I have to do that. And I didn't even
Right.
finish what I started the first time. And I just keep sending myself down a spiral like that. So for me, because I'm so easily distracted that way, I go through like a stint where I'll like consume a bunch of content and then
Mm-hmm.
I won't consume anything. And I'll
Okay.
just go and like just focus
And
on
just
doing what I'm
it just
doing.
wraps around your head. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I'll come back and I'll just start consuming a bunch of content again.
Right.
And then come back. Like it's a kind of a cycle because otherwise, yeah, I'll just
Yeah.
continually be spinning myself in a circle and not getting anything done.
Right. Right. Do you prepare for the guests that you have coming on?
So, yes, I don't do like a real in depth dive into the guest.
Mm-hmm.
And I know some people that are like, yeah, I read all of their books. I listen to all the episodes they've ever been on. I know everything about the podcast or the guest when they come on.
Mm-hmm.
And I see would that be beneficial, but I also don't like that approach very much just
Right.
because I want to come from a little bit more of a mindset that my listener is going to have. I want to
Right.
ask the questions that my listeners would want to know. And if I know everything about the guest, I'm going to ask the questions that I want to know because I already know so much about this guest. But a lot of my listeners might not know them. So I'll skip over the basic information that everyone's like, well, why did he skip that? Why didn't he ask that question? I don't know that answer.
Right.
So I'll do some research. I know the topics. I do prepare like an outline for the guest ahead of time. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'll go to their website, go to their social media, see what they're doing, see how they're doing it, just so I know really what they're all about, and then kind of draw up an outline for the episode that way. And
Mm.
then I send it over to the guest. They review it, and I say, okay, is anything you need to be changed in here? Are you comfortable with this topic? Like,
Mm.
I want the guest to sound good and look good too. Like, it's not just about me looking good on the show. Like, they're coming on the show, I want them to look good too. So
Mm.
I definitely get their input. If they're good, then we dive into it, and then I start getting into some of the questions I have on the outline. We'll dive deeper in other aspects, but um, yeah. So I think being able to partially prepare and then being able to come from a place of curiosity and really try to put yourself in the listener's like viewpoint,
Right.
it really helps create like better interviews ultimately.
Right. So you send them a video of or audio, whatever it may be, of what the podcast after it's done, and then they tell you whether they like it or they want anything cut or anything like that.
No, usually, I mean, with a podcast, like if you think about it, it's your show.
Right.
So, I mean, you have the freedom to do whatever you want after it's already recorded. The outline and everything that I give them, I send that to them before we record and say, like,
Mm.
okay, based on the stuff you do and the knowledge you have or the knowledge I think you have, like, these are the main topics that I want to try to cover in this episode.
Mm.
But I don't keep it like super strict. I know some people are like, these are the points we're covering.
And
We're
that's
not
it.
straying away from the script and
Right.
let's have fun, I guess. And
Right.
it's not fun. Like it's not.
Right.
I like the natural flow like this. Like we're just having a conversation. We're just two guys chatting,
Hmm.
talking about whatever we want to talk about.
Right.
So I like having a little bit of a like the main points, just so that I know like the listeners are going to get something of value out of it.
Right. Right.
But at the same time, like I want it to just be us chatting about this topic. I want to be talking about what you're an expert on. Share what you know about your expertise so that I can learn it selfishly and
Mhm.
so that my listeners can learn it as well.
Right. Do do your coworkers know that you have a podcast?
Yeah, a lot of some of them are starting to catch on now.
Oh, really?
For a while they didn't, and then because I mean I post it on social media, I throw it all up there too. So now
Uh,
now they're starting to find it, and yeah, I've actually gotten some good feedback from
Oh,
quite a
really?
few of them.
Nice.
Yeah, so I was pretty surprised. Some of them came back and they're like, honestly, dude, like yours is one of my favorite entrepreneur podcasts. Like, what? Like, that's awesome. Thank you.
Right. Very cool. So now, I mean, what if do you continue to just do both project management and podcasting forever, or I mean, or do you eventually want to get out to more of entrepreneurship and just stay there, or where do you see yourself in, let's say, 10 years?
Yeah, 10 years. 10 years. I want to be done with project management. I want to be out of that. I want to be focused on my own business. This
Right.
year, 2021, is really kind of the year that I dubbed as like the year of monetization for the 9 5 podcast and the 9 5 to Freedom brand as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
It's something to this point I haven't really done. I've done a little bit of affiliate marketing. So anybody who's not familiar with that, it's basically products that I use. I only promote products that I use or like. Um, if it's a product, I'll put information out about the product. If it's a
Mm-hmm.
product that you want to use and you choose to purchase through my link,
Mm.
I'll end up getting a small commission, and it
Nice.
doesn't charge you anything extra to give me that commission. The company that promotes that product or that's selling that product just gives me a portion of the profits.
Nice.
So I've dabbled in that. Haven't put a lot of effort into it. So I've made a little bit from that. But other than that, all of my content has just been free content through the blog post, through the podcast, through videos now. And we all know, unless you're a YouTube phenom that's getting 50 million down or 50 million views a month on your YouTube videos, like trying to make a living off of YouTube is difficult. So
Right.
I don't plan to make money off of that alone. I'm working on some digital courses and some more paid offerings that I can eventually sell and kind of put out there in the world. And that's kind of where my initial monetization efforts are kind of going towards that kind of
Right.
creation.
What are some of the tips or advices you may have for a new podcaster trying to be like affiliated with like companies or products where they can earn at least a little bit of commission from them?
I would say as you're getting started, you're going to find a lot of tools, you're going to find a lot of software, you're going to find equipment. Pay attention to those tools and software and see if they have affiliate programs.
Hmm.
A lot of times, like Buzzsprout, that's the podcast host that I use. So when I publish my podcast episodes, I upload them all to Buzzsprout. Buzzsprout pushes them all out to Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, all of that. They have a referral program. And basically, they give you a little link. And when I create my content, so I'm working on a lot of content around starting a podcast. When I create content and say, if you're looking for podcast hosts, I use Buzzsprout. This is my
Mhm.
favorite host, and that's true. It's genuine. Like, I'm not saying I use this or I really like this and I've never used it before. Like Buzzsprout, I only recommend stuff that I've used. So this is what I use. It's Buzzsprout. Oh, sorry, dogs. And if you want to purchase it, here's the link. I am an affiliate, so I would get a commission if you use that link. And just take a look at all the software that you use like that and see if they have affiliate programs where you do feel comfortable promoting it. Then lastly, Amazon. Amazon has like one of the biggest affiliate programs because you can sign up for their program and then any product that is on Amazon, you can get an affiliate link for.
Mhm.
So if I put together a guide of all the podcast equipment that you need to get started, you need a microphone, you need headphones, maybe you want the boom mic, like maybe you want all these different things, and I could pull Amazon affiliate links for all of those items and say, hey, here's a shopping list for Amazon. And if they purchase anything on Amazon after that,
Mhm.
you get a commission from that. But that's what's really cool about Amazon is you could I say like, here, get this mic. It's $60. I think this one specifically is $60. If you go to Amazon through my link and you take a look at the mic and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna hold off. Like I'm not gonna get it yet. But then you're like, oh, but while I'm on Amazon, like I could use a new hard drive, or like I was really needing a new computer mouse, and you get other products,
Mm-hmm.
you still get the affiliate commission for the products they purchased, even
Mm.
though it wasn't the microphone, because you referred them to Amazon and got them there on
Uh,
Amazon. You actually earn a commission from that.
Pretty cool. Pretty
Their
cool.
commissions are smaller than some other like software programs and tools like that, but I mean, yeah, I always think
Mm.
like if you referred someone and they end up getting like thousands of dollars worth of camera gear or bought a new drone or something like that, you'd make a pretty decent commission. You didn't even
Right.
try to sell them that product.
Right. So 2020, and hopefully, I mean, 2020 was just, I don't even know what to call it, because it was a mess, but then there was nothing going on, and it seems like this year is somewhat, I mean, somewhat getting kind of a little bit back to normal. um and it has some effects on people, some positive, some negative. How did 2020, what were the like big effects that 2020 put on you?
It was a bummer not being able to travel. Um, that's something like I said, me and my wife like
Right.
to travel. We like to go away like on extended weekends. Um, Usually every year around like January, February, like the last couple of years, we've been taking a trip to Hawaii,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like getting away for a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and weren't able to do that. So that was kind of a bummer. But like not being able to do the traveling, because I mean, even just like weekend trips, like we'd pick a random place that we haven't been to and just be like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, we're gonna go there. We're gonna scope out the breweries and scope out what they got
Right.
going on there and just kind of hang out and have a blast. And that was always really fun. So not being able to do that really sucked.
Right.
But had the pandemic and everything kind of getting shut down and being locked in place, had that not happened, there's a good chance that I wouldn't have started my podcast.
Really.
And then I mean, because I didn't start the podcast, there would be a lot of other things that I probably wouldn't have started.
Mm-hmm.
So I see it. Yeah, it's a bummer that we didn't get to do things that we typically like to do
Mm-hmm.
when everything was going well, but it also opened up some opportunities and I guess kind of put opportunities in front of me that I may have not taken before.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm in the middle. I'm thankful, but at the same time, kind of bummed.
Right. Now, you mentioned that you did traveling a lot. What were some of the best places that you've gone traveling to?
Maui is by far
Oh,
my
really?
favorite place ever. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever been. If you ever get a
No.
chance to go,
Mm-hmm.
go. Maui
Where's
is so beautiful.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Are you one of the ones that like to do all the activities, or just like to uh sit back, enjoy, and drink some, what is it called, what is it, the drinks, Mahiti toy of Mahiti drinks?
Mojitos?
Yeah, mojito. There you
Yeah,
go.
mojitos and mai tais and
Yeah,
all
there
that.
you go.
Yeah. We're very my wife and I joke about this a lot. Like we're very much like can't sit still type of people.
Oh, okay.
Like
Uh-huh.
we have a really hard time going on vacation and just saying like, okay, all we're gonna do this vacation is sit on the beach and do nothing else. We got a very tight schedule. We're gonna do this, and we're gonna do this, we're gonna do
Right.
this, we gotta be here. And I mean that's just what we like to do. We like to experience things. We like to get out and just kind of venture around.
Hmm.
There in Maui, one of our favorite things is like whale
Oh,
watching,
okay.
snorkeling, hiking, like doing all
Nice.
that. So we like to be on the boat. We like to be in the water. Um, yeah, we're just seems like we're constantly moving. We're just as exhausted leaving vacation, if not more, than when we entered it.
Right. How or how's the feeling when you're snorkeling and you're down there and you kind of see like a completely different world from what you're used to?
it's it's pretty crazy. We
Mhm.
did the last time we went there. We actually did. It's called a discovery scuba dive.
Okay.
So normally we just do like the snorkeling. You're floating on top of the water and just kind of take a look
Oh,
around.
okay. Hmm.
But with this discovery dive, like they allow you to go down with the tanks, like your full scuba gear,
Oh, uh-huh.
and you're scuba diving. But
Right.
it's a shortened session because you're not fully trained. Like they give you kind of a crash course before you do it, so you're not fully certified, but you can still dive. I think it was like 45 minutes or something. So we
Wow.
did that, and it was so freaking cool. Like being able to be down inside the water, not just floating up on top, is such a neat. Like you can get close to stuff, you can see things, but then when you look out and see like nothing
Hmm.
on the other side of you, and you're like, anything could be over there.
Right.
Like it just goes darkness. Like anything could pop out over
Right.
there. Like that's kind of scary, but it's really cool. It's I don't
Right.
know. And there because when we go, it's like prime whale season.
Oh,
We
okay.
actually when you're underwater, you can hear the whales. Like they're way off in the distance. Like you can't. I've never seen one underwater, but you can hear them like singing in the
Wow.
back, and you're like, "Holy cow!" It sounds like they're just beyond sight. Like if I were to swim out a little farther, they'd be right there.
Right. Dang. And that's, I mean, I think that's so crazy how we have, these huge, huge whales and all this life underwater that we almost don't know much about,
Yeah.
but then again, we have that here on Earth, but then we're out there in space trying to figure out stuff that it's almost unreachable.
Hmm.
And here we have something that's reachable, but we aren't able to, or we don't explore it as much as we should,
Yeah.
and it's crazy how we even you want to invest all this time, all this research on, like, stuff that's already extinct. But what about the stuff that we have now? If it's crazy how we only appreciate it, and yeah, we only appreciate it once it's gone. It's like, what about the things that are here now? If like like a sperm whale or a humpback, well, that thing is huge, it's massive. If it was extinct, we were like, damn, like that thing, imagine how would it be living and have that thing around. But it's like
Yeah.
we have that thing around,
Right. Yeah.
and we're not as fascinated and we're not, deep in research as we should be. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's a really good point. I never thought about it like that, but yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and just like all, like, what they say, the dolphins are, they're almost, their brains are kind of smarter than humans, and just their it's crazy how they kind of communicate through sonar. And I don't know, it the way we communicate, you know is that how, maybe is that their evolution? And then what if our evolution eventually is like that, to where we're just communicating through sonar, where we're just staring at each other, and there's just like, you know
Yeah.
sonar through each other, where we don't even have to, even open our mouths. It's just brain to brain communication, and that's it.
That's crazy. Yeah. I'm buying it. I'm digging it.
Yeah. So now with everybody, are you with everybody getting the famous or infamous stimmy? Has that helped you out?
The what?
The stimulus?
Oh, yeah. I think we got it like the first time around. Um, and then I don't know, they started changing it up where like once you hit like a certain threshold, then I don't know, it's like a percentage now in terms of like
Right.
how much you get. So that's we're fortunate enough like with what we do, like we don't have to have the full amount.
Nice.
So that's nice. But yeah,
How do you feel about it, like being distributed to, everybody?
I don't know. I'm interested to see what happens. I kind of feel like it's all going out and then they're gonna like all ask for it back. Like it seems too good to be true.
Too good to be true. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that kind of scares me, like, and hopefully this is not the case for everybody, but as we go out, we see all these people, It's definitely more money for anybody,
Hmm.
but then it scares me when there's people that they go out and they just spend it on stuff that they want,
Oh,
y-
right.
you know, and
It could be going to someone who actually needs it.
not only that, but if you want the same money coming in without relying on everybody, how about you invest it back into yourself? You know,
Yeah.
what if you, finally, get a little stand or a little banner or something and start your own, making your own, I don't know, your own burgers or something,
Yeah.
because it's, and it can, it's easy just to take advantage. And then what, after you taking advantage, then you're gonna want more and more and more, and it's just, there's no way out of it,
Hmm.
you know
Yeah. I mean, I've seen people who definitely have taken advantage of that, and that's just a matter of like, I think for most people recognizing an opportunity and being willing to do something with it.
right.
It seems like there are a lot of people that, I mean, you hear about all the time, people who win the lottery usually end up worse off than they started.
Yeah.
And it's like, to me, in my mind, I don't understand how that's possible. Like,
Right.
if I won the lottery tomorrow, I know exactly what I would end up doing with it. Like, I'd be investing with it. I'd be making that money work for me, basically. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it blows my mind that people can just blow it all and then push themselves like, oh, this is my one time to splurge. So
Right.
now I'm gonna blow it all in one night and then be like, okay, well now I'm back to
Right.
where I'm at. Like, people are turning it into thousands, tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like, they're using it to their advantage.
Right. And I mean, that's why I love the idea of entrepreneurship, because even though you have this idea to kind of give yourself more freedom, it doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
What really matters and what really, makes you is the process. Because
Hmm.
within the process, you realize how much time you invest, how much money you invest. And once you reach your, let's say, $100,000, then you really start to appreciate that money, because you look back and say, you know what, this is how, in order to get this, I had to go through all this. And do I really want to give it up that easy? And am I going to quit now that I have this? And I feel like that's why a lot of people that win the lottery, they tend to get rid of it right away, because they don't have a struggle to get the lottery.
Yeah, I think
All it
that's a
is
really good
one
point.
day they got to take it, and the next day they win $1 million. Where's the struggle? And I feel like that's kind of like during that's their mentality, that as soon as I buy it, the ticket, the next day, then I have $1 million. I think
Right.
that's how it's so
There
easy
was
for them
nothing.
to just let it waste so easily.
Yeah, that's probably a very valid reason.
Yeah. All right, Nick. Well, let's wrap this up, man.
All
That's
right, man.
a good way to end the podcast.
Yeah, yeah. If you're gonna win the lottery, do something with it. Don't just
Yes.
blow it.
Yes. I mean, even if it's $50, $100, whatever it may be, it's
Yeah,
always good to kind of, invest it on yourself, right?
I love it. And if you're not gonna do that, then send it my way, and I'll do something with it.
Yeah. Exactly. All right, Nick. Well, thank you, man, for doing this. Appreciate it, and best luck to you. And hopefully later on we'll be able to do another podcast.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. This is a blast chatting with you, and
And
yeah,
then can
getting to
can
know you a
you
little bit more. What's up?
can you say where people can find you or listen to you?
Oh, yeah. So if you go to 95tofreedom.com, that'll take you to like my main, like I said, the hub.
Hmm.
Um, but then if you go to 95podcast.com, it's all spelled out. So I know it's a little bit confusing that I use letters for numbers, but it's spelled out NINEFIVE podcast.com. And that will take you to like my main podcast page. And there you can find all of the recent episodes and kind of dive into the backlog there. But you can find the podcast Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, wherever you listen to your podcasts. That's
Hmm.
it's all on there. So yeah, if anybody's hearing this and they're interested in hearing the stories of entrepreneurs and
Hmm.
kind of their transition from 9 to 5 into entrepreneurship and how they did it, like that, definitely love to have you over there and get your input and feedback on it. It's been a blast so far.
Awesome, man. All right, Nick. Well, thanks again, man. And
Yes.
good luck to you. And, you know, keep it going.
Thanks, man. You too.
All right, man. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.